Snow fell in quiet sheets over the city, muffling the noise of traffic and turning the streets into long, pale corridors of light and shadow. The hour was late, the kind of hour when even ambition seemed tired. When skyscraper windows went dark one by one, Daniel Cross sat alone in the backseat of his car, his coat folded neatly beside him, his tie loosened, his eyes heavy with the weight of another endless day. He was a man known across the business world as a relentless CEO, a strategist who never lost, a leader whose decisions moved markets. Yet in the dim reflection of the window, he looked less like a titan and more like a father, counting minutes until he could return home. The driver slowed at a red light, tires crunching softly against ice. Daniel glanced up absently and then he saw her. She was sitting on the sidewalk near a closed cafe, curled into herself like a fallen leaf, her arms wrapped tightly around her thin frame. Her coat was far too big, torn at the sleeve, the fabric soaked through by melting snow. Dark hair spilled messily over her face, and her shoes looked as if they had once belonged to someone else entirely. She couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old. She wasn't begging. She wasn't moving. She was just there, still cold, invisible. Daniel's breath caught. "Stop the car," he said, his voice sharper than he intended. The driver hesitated. "Sir, this isn't—" "Please," Daniel said quietly now, "and stop." The car pulled over. Daniel opened the door before the driver could protest, the cold slapping his face like a reprimand. Snow seeped into his shoes as he crossed the sidewalk. Up close he could see her lips trembling, her fingers stiff and red, her eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. She looked up at him slowly, as if waking from a dream she didn't want to be in. For a moment neither spoke. Then she whispered, barely louder than the wind, "Please help her, Daddy." The word struck him like a blow. Daddy. He wasn't her father, he knew that instantly. But the word landed somewhere deep, somewhere raw. He thought of his own daughter, Emma, waiting at home with her homework spread across the kitchen table, probably pretending not to be sleepy so she could see him before bed. He thought of how easily this could have been her, how thin the line was between safety and ruin. "I'm here," he said, kneeling despite the cold. "You're going to be okay." She blinked at him, confusion clouding her eyes. I was trying to stay awake," she murmured. "My mom said, if I sleep outside, I might not wake up." His chest tightened. "Where is your mom?" She shook her head slowly. "She went to get help. She said she'd come back. That was yesterday." Daniel didn't hesitate again. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, the fabric swallowing her small body. She flinched at the sudden warmth, then relaxed, clinging to it instinctively. He lifted her, carefully, surprised by how light she was, like holding a bundle of winter clothes instead of a child. "Sir," the driver called, alarmed. "What are you doing?" "Call an ambulance," Daniel said, "and then drive us to the hospital." The ride felt endless. The girl drifted in and out of consciousness, her head resting against Daniel's chest. He kept one arm around her, the other braced against the seat as the car moved through icy streets. He spoke to her softly, telling her his name, telling her about the warm lights of the city, about how spring always came back no matter how long winter seemed. He didn't know if she could hear him, but he spoke anyway. At the hospital, doctors rushed her into a room, their faces tight with urgency. Hypothermia, they said, malnutrition, severe exhaustion. Daniel stood outside the glass doors, hands shaking slightly now that he no longer needed to be strong for her. He made calls without thinking, legal, medical, logistical calls, using the same efficiency he used in boardrooms. Money moved. Beds were secured. Social services were contacted. Everything that could be done was done. Hours later, a nurse approached him. "She's stable," she said gently. "You found her just in time." Daniel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Can I see her?" The nurse nodded. The girl lay in a clean white bed, blankets tucked around her, a small monitor beeping softly beside her. Color had returned to her cheeks. Her eyelashes fluttered as he stepped closer. "You stayed," she said, her voice stronger now. "Yes," Daniel replied. "I told you I would." She studied his face with a seriousness far older than her years. "Are you really my daddy?" The question hung between them. Daniel swallowed. "No," he said carefully, "but I am a dad, and I care about you." She considered this, then nodded slowly as if filing the answer away. "My name is Lily." "It's nice to meet you, Lily," he said. "I'm Daniel." Lily stayed in the hospital for weeks. Her mother was never found. Social workers searched, but there were no records, no relatives who could be located. Lily said little about her past. She didn't cry. She didn't ask questions. She simply watched the world with cautious eyes, as if expecting it to vanish again at any moment. Daniel visited every day. At first it was guilt that drove him, the knowledge that he had the power to help and could not turn away. Then it became something else. He brought books, a small stuffed bear Emma insisted on lending her, and eventually Emma herself. The two girls sat together on the hospital bed, coloring quietly, their heads bent close. Daniel watched them from the doorway, his heart aching with a strange mixture of fear and hope. When the question of Lily's future became unavoidable, Daniel found himself unable to imagine her anywhere else. "I want to foster her," he told the social worker, his voice steady despite the storm inside him, "at least until we know more." The paperwork was extensive. The scrutiny was intense. But Daniel Cross was nothing if not thorough. And weeks later, Lily came home with them. She moved through the house like a ghost at first, touching walls, staring at windows, flinching at sudden sounds. Emma tried to include her in everything, chatting endlessly, offering toys, sharing secrets. Lily listened more than she spoke. At night, Daniel often found her awake, sitting up in bed, watching the door. "I don't want to sleep," she said once, panic flickering in her eyes. "What if I don't wake up?" Daniel sat beside her, his voice calm. "You're safe here," he said, "and I'll be right outside." Over time, slowly, Lily began to believe him. Seasons changed. Snow melted. Spring crept into the city. Lily grew stronger, brighter. She laughed sometimes, softly at first, then freely. She learned to ride a bike, to solve math problems, to trust that food would come every day. Daniel learned, too, how to braid hair badly, how to listen without fixing, how to love without expecting gratitude. Years passed, and the night Lily was rescued became a story they told quietly, not as a miracle, but as a beginning. The auditorium was filled to capacity, every seat occupied, the air buzzing with anticipation. Banners hung from the walls, bearing the logo of the Cross Foundation, an organization that had become synonymous with hope for thousands of vulnerable children. Daniel Cross stood near the stage, hands clasped behind his back, his hair now threaded with silver. He watched the crowd, with the same focused calm he once reserved for shareholders and investors, but his heart beat faster for a different reason today. Backstage, Lily adjusted the microphone, her hands steady, her posture confident. She was no longer the freezing child curled on a sidewalk. She was 22 now, tall and composed, her eyes bright with purpose. Years of safety, education, and quiet encouragement had shaped her into someone remarkable. She wore a simple suit, professional but unpretentious, and around her wrist was a thin bracelet, one Daniel recognized instantly. It had been Emma's, a small plastic charm bracelet she'd given Lily during her hospital stay, insisting it was for good luck forever. Emma stood beside her now, beaming, whispering encouragement. The sisters, because that was what they were in every way that mattered, shared a brief hug. "Ready?" Emma asked. Lily nodded. "I think so." When Lily stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. She looked out over the sea of faces, donors, journalists, students, families who had benefited from the Foundation's programs. She took a breath, grounding herself. "My name is Lily Cross," she began, "and I am here because someone stopped his car." A ripple moved through the audience. "Many years ago, on a winter night much like this one," she continued, "I was cold, hungry, and very alone. I didn't think anyone could see me. I didn't think anyone would care. But one person did. One person chose to stop." Daniel's throat tightened. "That choice didn't just save my life," Lily said. "It changed it. It gave me time. It gave me safety. It gave me the chance to grow into who I am today." She spoke about the Foundation's mission, about education, about the power of intervention and compassion. She spoke with clarity and strength, but there was warmth in her voice too, a deep understanding of the fragility of hope and how easily it could be extinguished or protected. "I stand here today not as a victim," she said, "but as proof. Proof that kindness matters. Proof that being seen can change everything." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes, unashamed. He remembered the weight of her small body in his arms, the whisper in the snow, the fear in her eyes. He remembered every late night, every conversation, every moment of doubt, and he remembered the quiet certainty that had guided him all along, that helping her was never a question. After the event, Lily found him near the exit, the noise fading into the background. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the past and present converging in that shared silence. "Thank you," Lily said softly. Daniel shook his head. "You did the hard part." She smiled. "You stopped the car." They embraced, not as rescuer and rescued, but as family. Outside, snow began to fall again, light and gentle, dusting the city in white. Lily stepped into the night with confidence. Warmth wrapped around her in ways far deeper than any coat. Somewhere another child waited to be seen, and because one man had listened to a whisper in the cold, the world was just a little kinder, one life at a time. The end.